welcome to Information Please, your Peoria Public Library on the air, bringing you information about the library and your community. I'm Roberta Koshelski, sitting in for your usual host, Tricia Nowak. Today our guest is Deb York, library assistant, currently at the North Branch of Peoria Public Library. Hi, Deb.
Hello, Rebecca. Roberta.
Okay. Hi, George. Welcome, Deb. Don't be nervous, it's just us. You are known to be skilled in Reader's Advisory, which is matching good books to our readers. And so what kind of library experience do you have that helped you become such an excellent Reader's Advisor?
Coming up in October, 37 years with Peoria Public Library.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I never thought I'd make it, but I started out downtown and ended up at McClure for 30 years. And it was a small library. You had a lot of give and take with your patrons, so I'd learn what they liked, and they'd tell me what they'd read and what they liked, what they didn't. And any reputation I have is strictly due to my patrons. Mm-hmm. You know, I read a lot myself, but you know, it's the patrons' feedback that really helps.
And I'm not sure that I remember that you started at the main library. Was that in the circulation?
I started
department?
in circulation, and then I went into film service, interlibrary loan, and reserves. Do you remember the 16-millimeter films, the big
Yes.
reels and the big boxes? I got to pass those out to people.
To do that, okay. And then McClure, which many people who have not seen you for a long time at McClure now
if they wonder where I'm at, I'm still around.
At the North Branch,
right.
Okay, since they opened.
Right, and we've just had our 4th anniversary, May 14th, so it's a beautiful building. We get so many compliments, so my compliments to the building committee.
Yes. And it's well used and busy, and as you were saying before the camera started rolling, not as much time for the personal one-on-one necessarily with people and discovering what they read and
I miss
sharing
that. I'm doing the holds process now, and North in general processes about 3,000 holds a month. That's books coming in that our patrons have requested. So I do see a lot of what's important to people and the new things that are popular, but it's not the same as talking to people.
Well, and you don't get the judgments on them.
Correct.
Yeah,
so, and I do like that. So if I'm there, please stop, tell me what you're thinking.
Yes, great. Now, what do you like to read overall?
My favorite, of course, is the espionage thrillers, but I also have a real love for fantasy.
Okay.
I like more fantasy light, and I will find myself going to the young adult books because they're less gory. You know, Game of Thrones is so popular now. My brothers loved it. My son loved it. I started reading it. I thought, great book, and all of a sudden, bloodshed, and close the cover.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a topic for another program, your fantasy, because today we're going to be talking more about the espionage and thriller genres.
Deb's Fantasy World. I like that.
Yeah, all right. We've got the title already. Now, what attracts you to select a particular book to read? Do you mostly stick to those two categories?
I'm open to other types. I'm involved with a guy from Houston, and he introduced me to Elmore Kelton, and I've gone through a lot of Westerns now lately, and I've done historical things that if somebody recommends a book to me and says, this is really good, I'll give it a try. I usually steer clear of nonfiction, but I've been known to read it.
And I haven't really heard the word romance come from your lips in terms of reading tastes.
I do like Nora Roberts.
Okay.
I love her J.D. Robb mystery series. Eve Dallas is wonderful. Eve and Peabody, if you want something thought-provoking and humorous, I highly recommend the audiobooks. I've been known to drive down the street with tears pouring of laughter. Yeah.
All right.
But I read the Nora Roberts, and I guess that's as close to mystery, or romance, I'm sorry, that I get to.
Okay. Now, what we're talking about today is what you describe as manly series. And why do you, as a female, read manly series? What attracts
It was
them to
kind
you?
of a play on words. It started out He-Man,
Okay.
He-Manly, and it's because all the characters are just so extremely masculine, and that's something I've really noticed in the last 35 years. When I first started, there used to be a very clearly defined women's books, men's books. That's gone now, thank goodness. You know, women don't have to read Danielle Steele or Barbara Cartland, if you remember her.
Yes.
You know, and authors like Lee Child, who does the Jack Reacher books, they're just entertaining. You know, they're thought-provoking
For anybody.
for anybody.
Okay. Well, the first author that you had on your list today is Lee Child, and I'm going to use this, and we've got a couple of jackets of a few of his books. And what can you tell us about Lee Child and his books?
Oh, Lee Child is actually Brit. His real name is Grant, and he's got a younger brother that's also writing. But he's got this wonderful character, Jack Reacher, and we could do another story about the people that think that Tom Cruise should not have made the movie, but that's a different topic.
Well, I was mentioning I did a little reading since I really have not. There's some of these authors I haven't read any of their books before, and there's some that I've read a book or two by them quite a few years ago. So I wanted to refresh my memory. And you mentioned that Grant is Lee Child's real last name, but Lee Child is a pseudonym. And he said that he chose the name Child because he was thinking ahead about where his mystery espionage books would fall on the bookstore shelves. And he decided that Child would fall right between Raymond Chandler and Agatha Christie. So what
Great
better way to
company.
market your mysteries?
Exactly. Jack Reacher, and I'm going to jump to another author that I really like, who is David Baldacci. They both have these great characters, Jack Reacher and John Puller. I mean, Jack and John reach and pull. However, Puller is supposed to be named after a general, and you said you read where Reacher was named after.
Yeah, the author Lee Child's wife was with him in the supermarket, and I guess people, because he's so tall, people were asking him, "Can you get that down off the shelf for me?" And his wife said to him, "Well, if this writing thing doesn't pan out, you could be a supermarket reacher." And so, in his first book of the series, that's the last name of his character. And which came first then, the David Baldacci Puller guy or the Lee Child Reacher character?
Reacher
Reacher
came
did
first.
come first.
Right. Puller's only got 3 or 4 novels of his. Did I just say Puller only has 3 or 4 novels of his own? And I don't think I'm giving too much away, but in one of the last Lee Child books about Jack Reacher, one of the bad guys was named Baldacci.
Oh,
And
really?
I just laughed. Yeah.
That doesn't seem like a name you'd just pull out randomly.
No,
from-
I'm sure that was just a little dig. But when Reacher has been so popular for so long, and then when Puller came out, both guys are very large, 6'5", 6'6", 220 to 250 pounds. They're both military, police. Reacher's retired. Puller is still in the service. Reacher has never seen active duty outside of being an MP. He reached the rank of major. You don't know much about his life. He's a wanderer, kind of like the Avenger old TV series. He walks around with nothing that he owns except for a portable toothbrush. When his clothes get dirty, he buys replacements, and he is not held down by anything. He loves music, especially blues. And he's from a military family. He had a brother. His mother was French. And he grew up mainly overseas. He knew nothing of actual America, you know, for years. So very interesting character in that fact. But Puller's still in the military. His father's a general that causes him problems. He's got a brother who was in prison for treason, which makes it interesting. And he actually has a cat. So he does have more roots than Jack did.
Well, that's one of the interesting things about reading a series, and I will change from Lee Child here to David BALDACCI with two of his book jackets, that with one book about a set of characters, you learn just so much about the characters, but in a series, you can see that main character develop and you learn more about them. Now, you're going to be recommending several authors with series. Do you recommend that they start from the beginning?
Always.
Oh.
Okay. If you can do it, go back as far as you can. And with North Branch only being 4 years old, we don't have a lot of the original books. But we've got this wonderful Holds program, and we can borrow from any library, you know, in Central Illinois, and we do go outside if you need to do an interlibrary loan.
Yes. Yes.
David BALDACCI alone has 6 individual series, besides writing standalones. The Absolute Power was one of his first standalones and was such a good story that Clint Eastwood made it into a movie and starred in it. So. Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned Tom Cruise, and you mentioned it was a controversial choice to have him as the lead character.
Yes. Tom Cruise is not 6'4". And that is such an integral part of Jack's personality. His size is mentioned all the time, and it's the fact he's got this reach, and he's light on his feet, and he's so strong that he can take out the bad guys. Tom Cruise, man.
Okay, well, here's what Lee Child said. I happened to find this quote. With another actor, you might get 100% of the height, but only 90% of reacher. With Tom, you get 100% of reacher with only 90% of the height. I don't know.
75%.
Yeah, 75% of the height. Okay, great. Okay, who's next?
Well, continuing with BALDACCI, he's got a brand new book out with a new character, Amos Decker, another really large man, a real anti-hero. The first few pages, I didn't think I was going to like it, but stick with it. It's very good.
Okay.
Amos had had a brain injury that made him kind of a savant, and he uses that, and he's had some terrible things happen to him in his life. Like I said, I don't like the gore, but once you got past that beginning, you know,
well worth it.
It's well worth it. Makes you think.
Okay. And
who do we have next?
Michael Connelly.
He's been around a long time. Let's see, Michael Connelly, I've lost my notes here. Michael Connelly's got Hieronymus Bosch as his main character. I know that from memory.
And
I'm going...
Well, while you do that, I'm going to take a look at one of my notes about him because it ties in with Raymond Chandler again. That Michael Connelly didn't get the best grades in school, I guess. And he went to see Robert Altman's film, The Long Goodbye. And he really liked that film so much, and it was based on Raymond Chandler's The Long Goodbye. And so that inspired him to be a mystery writer.
Isn't that amazing?
And
one little thing.
Yeah, and then, continuing on to that, he moved to Los Angeles at some point. He went to see the Hightower Apartments where Raymond Chandler's famous character, Philip Marlowe, lived. And he got the manager of that apartment building to promise if that apartment ever comes open to call him. It did come open. He did live there in the Philip Marlowe apartment.
Dreams come
for
true.
a while, and that's where he wrote for several years. But then he said it was living there was more based on the nostalgia of the place rather than the comforts because it was an apartment with no air conditioning.
Oh, kind of need that. Well, he was one of our first continuing series type authors, and he started back in 1992, and he did win the Edgar Award, which is one of the highest awards for mystery writers. But he introduced LAPD homicide detective and a Vietnam veteran, Harry Bosch in Black Echo. Harry had kind of a rough time. He was the son of a prostitute, and he was a maverick and a time bomb. And the series is so popular, they're coming out with the 28th book, The Crossing, and that's not only going to feature Harry Bosch, it's also going to feature his half-brother. I don't know if you remember this movie,
The Lincoln Lawyer.
With Matthew McConaughey. And he's got his own series, the Lincoln Lawyer series, but that's going to be coming out in November. And I didn't know they've got a TV series that Amazon's put out called Bosch. I guess it's had one season and now it's got another one. It's strictly on Amazon, but maybe the library can look into buying that.
Based on that character. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Another one of my favorite authors, I don't know, who do you have
I think
up
next might be Vince Flynn.
We lost him in 2013. He was only 47, and you know, it was such a sad time. This man was such a good writer, and he writes very current, topical, espionage, White House, Middle East. And I remember reading his book Memorial Day at lunch, and in the book they're talking about terrorist pictures being on TV. I went home that night and they're on the news, terrorist pictures, and you talk about goosebumps. But what I found fascinating was the Middle Eastern people were not all bad. As a matter of fact, he went after a lot of American politicians who were crooks, you know, and he had good friends in the Palestinians, and it was a very even look, and I felt like it was a very honest look at the situation. So another author, Kyle Mills, is taking over the Mitch Rapp series, and a new book will be coming out called The Survivor in October. So Vince Flynn fans, keep a lookout.
Okay, Kyle Mills, you said. Okay. And I'm going to Stephen Hunter.
Right. He's got kind of an interlocking double series with Bob the Nailer Swagger, who was originally a Vietnam sniper, as compared to in the movie, he's been moved up to a little bit more recent war. But Hunter also writes about Bob Lee Swagger, which was Bob's father, and it goes back to the time of Cuba, and he ended up being an Arkansas state trooper. So some places the series overlap, but they're both very good. And if you do kind of like a historical look at things, these are very good books.
Okay, and what we have on the screen, it looks like, is the jacket of the a jacket of the paperback, probably. It says, now a major motion picture from Paramount Pictures.
Yeah.
So.
Mark Wahlberg playing the shooter.
Okay. And any of these films we show or talk about here are also available at the library if you want to get a taste of the author through the film first.
The first book I ever read by Stephen Hunter, I think, was called The Day Before Midnight, and some bad guys start a war, World War III, on American soil. And it had a bunch of everyday people, a school teacher, you know, different walks of life, fighting. And there again, you just put yourself in that situation. What would I do? How would I cope? And so, very good books. He's got another one coming out in May 19th called I, Ripper, and Hunter's taking you deep inside the mind of Jack the Ripper.
So aside from his character, it's a new standalone.
A new standalone, yeah.
Well, and it seems like Jack the Ripper has been popular as true crime and as a subject of historical fiction for a while. So that
still fascinates people.
So the combination of Stephen Hunter's name as the author and Jack the Ripper as the subject should
bring it out.
provoke sales too. Okay.
So,
Next.
oh,
He's been around a while.
Sandford, yes. He released his first Rules of Prey in 1989. His second one, I believe, was, oh, shoot, it's got a feather on the cover. I didn't like that book because I was rooting for the bad guys. I didn't feel they were really bad guys and they had a bum deal. But something that's interesting, Davenport was a maverick detective in the Minneapolis Police Department. He made his own personal fortune writing computer games. Two of the Prey books were made into films for TV, and the first one, interestingly enough, was portrayed by a African-American author, Eric LaSalle. And then Mark Harmon from NCIS fame also made one. Certain Prey made a TV movie in 2011.
Well, that's interesting what happens sometimes to books that are made into movies, that changes are made because the movie people buy the rights, and so then the author loses a lot of say and,
Right.
and you know, even some plot twists or some characters. And then interesting, I don't know if I'd heard before, where you know the main character in two different films who's supposed to be playing the same guy changes race.
Right.
That's
Well, and you know, it's amazing. Everybody, you get descriptions of the characters in the book, but you still picture them differently in your own mind.
Yes.
Nobody sees them the same way. And so this guy was reading this book and he thought, hey, I could play that character. And I remember watching it. He did a great job. So it's fun. It makes it interesting.
okay, and we're ready for
Our next
Joseph.
Finder.
Finder.
He's a new author to me. I discovered him in this really amazing book, edited by David BALDACCI. It's put out by the International Thrillers. Of course, they don't have it on the cover here.
Oh, Thrillers Association or something?
Yes,
Okay.
Writers Association.
Okay.
And it's a fundraiser for them. But what they've done is they've taken all these great characters and paired them up in short stories and had them work together. For example, Dennis Lehane, who's another really well-known author, his Patrick Kenzie works with Michael Connelly's Harry Bosch
So they work together to
solve a mystery.
Oh, okay.
Right. The strangest one was R.L. Stein, who's known for Goosebumps. He's a
Right.
kids writer in general. His ventriloquist dummy, Slappy, works with Douglas Preston Lincolnchild's Aloysius Pendergrast. That was a very strange story. But you get Jeffrey Deaver's Lincoln Rhyme. He worked with John Sandford's Davenport. And this is a great way to introduce yourself to these books. If you don't like it, you're just spending a little bit of time. But
that's great, because I'm seeing Michael Connelly and John Sandford and Lee Child, Joseph Finder.
John LaCroix,
So-
I love saying that.
And so people that we've talked about here, but yeah, if you don't want to commit yourself or don't know who to choose, boy, Face Off.
It gives you
the-
a feel. And there are several other books in this category. Let me see if I can find that. They also have a series called First Thrills with some of these authors. And also what they're doing is promoting new authors in the genre. So you're getting to meet new people before they become popular.
Well, and I wonder if Joseph Finder is actually, I was reading about one of these authors who started the International Thrillers Association.
That's what
and and they're promoting and mentoring, I guess, new authors.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, it says in my notes, my research from the other day, that author Joseph Finder completed his master's at the Harvard Russian Research Center and later taught on the Harvard faculty. So, you know,
He knows what he's talking
well,
about.
these
That's
people
what makes a good writer.
do a lot of research.
That's what Vince Flynn, why he was so good, is he was in Washington and he had jobs that they don't necessarily tell you about. But some of these people may have been former CIA and
Finder was. He was recruited to the CIA but decided to become a writer. And then, let's see, Stephen Hunter, who we talked about a few authors back, he's well known in the gun community for his careful, detailed writing about gun handling and guns. And so for gun enthusiasts, Stephen Hunter might be the way to go for something new to read.
very definitely, yeah. Finder had written a lot of standalone novels, such as High Crimes, that they made into a movie with Ashley Judd and Morgan Freeman. His novel Paranoia was adapted in 2013 with Gary Oldman and Harrison Ford. So far, he's only written 2 thrillers featuring Nick Heller, which is the character I first read, Vanished and Buried Secrets. And actually, I'll let you in on a secret, I didn't read it. I listened to it on audiobook.
Well, that counts.
I am addicted to audiobooks. If you have to drive a half hour each day to work, this is the way to go. Cleaning house, got to have your audiobooks going.
That's great.
But
And we have tons of them at each of our library locations.
we do. Nick Heller's an international investigator. Basically, he's a private spy. And he's got a new one coming out in June called The Fixer.
All right.
One other author I didn't tell you about that I just kind of discovered is Brad Thor. He's a Chicagoan by birth, lived there for many years. He's a little bit more like Vince Flynn, where he's more international espionage, does a lot in the Middle East. His character is Scott Harvath, and he was first introduced in 2002. He's an ex-Navy SEAL. Okay. So if you like the military thrillers, you might check this guy out.
Well, you're a fountain of information, and our half hour has already gone by. So I want to point out one thing. If Deb's not working, or if you're at another location, you're at home, also try our data-based Novelist. That's on our PeoriaPublicLibrary.org website, Novelist, to find more reads like Deborah suggests. Thank you, Deb, for being
You're
here.
welcome. It's been fun.
Good. Thank you for watching Information Please, your Peoria Public Library on the air. See you next time.